You are listening to Faithless Brewing, a Magic the Gathering podcast for the Spike Rogue. Each week we design new decks for tournament play. We put our creations to the test and share our findings on the air. Today we welcome special guest Dack Fayden 07 to hear about the greatest brews in the multiverse. We talk about 10 spicy 5-0 lists in Modern, and Dack's picks for the best cards from March of the Machine. That's all coming up on Faithless Brewing. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Faithless Brewing podcast. I'm your host, Dan Schriever, also known as Cavedan, and I'm joined today by a very special guest. We here at Faithless Brewing are committed to bringing you the finest brews from all around the world, and today we have a guest brewer joining us all the way from Croatia. Please welcome Josip Jukic, perhaps better known as Dack Fayden 07. Josip, welcome.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan, and hello to all the listeners out there. I am, as Dan said, I'm Josip Jukic, and I live in Croatia, small town, but for Croatia it's the second biggest, called Split, and I really enjoy grinding and brewing on MTGO and playing a new deck almost every day. And constantly in it, trying to innovate and find something interesting, something new to play. As Dan said, I'm better known as Dack Fayden 07. That's the name of my YouTube channel too. My MTGO name, name of my Twitter account, and Discord and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, so let me ask you about Dack Fayden 07 just at the top. So that's Dack_Fayden. The now deceased planeswalker, and 07 like James Bond, but without the 00.
It's kind of it's always 07 with my nicks because I was born on 0707, 7th of July. So that's kind of because of that. And Dack Fayden wasn't really a good name for the YouTube channel because Planeswalker is very popular. So it's sometimes very hard to find my stuff on the YouTube because of the Dack Fayden, the Planeswalker. So that wasn't really a smart move, but it is how it is, and I didn't want to change it afterwards. So it stuck. It's an old nickname. I used it for a lot of years, and I can't really say why did I start using it, but yeah, can't remember it. It is just old and. I used it for 10 years and can't remember why I started it then. But
okay, so it's not because he's the greatest thief in the multiverse, something like that.
Yeah, I really like the card, and it was at the time it was my favorite card in the Magic, and 10 years ago it was also one of the best cards when it was a new card. So at that point I started using the nick, and really I played a lot of Legacy at that time and EDH, and really Dack Fayden was one of my favorite cards at the moment, but nothing else very special in that name, just that, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to call you Josip on this episode, but if I accidentally call you Dack,
it's fine. It's fine.
All right.
No problem.
All right.
No problem.
So listeners of this show will know you by now because your name comes up frequently, especially in the last couple months. You're always in the 5-0s. Like, I'm looking at your MTG Goldfish page, your tournament results. It's absolutely beautiful stuff. Like, trophy after trophy with some of the sweetest brews that you can imagine. And we're going to talk about them, a bunch of them today on this episode.
I'm kind of sad lately because after the Daybreak games took the MTGO, they don't post all the 5-0 results anymore. So that's kind of sad. And sometimes you just do 5-0 with some crazy list and it never gets posted. I think it's not a good practice. So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a surprise. But the good news for us is that you don't just brew sweet decks and win with them, you also record them. You post them on YouTube. And I have to say, I love your YouTube channel. It's quickly become one of
Thanks.
my favorite channels
Thanks.
because it's not just the gameplay. I mean, you're an excellent player. I love the commentary. I learn a lot from it. But you use the Magic Online replay function. So you're giving us a shortened version. Like you see the whole game, but it happens in half the time as when you're just watching a streamer and it takes them 2 hours to finish a league.
Yeah.
Here I get to watch you with intelligent commentary and the whole thing takes maybe 40 minutes.
Yeah, I'm really not sure the viewers like the long videos more or the short ones. I guess some people like that. Some people like shorter. Some people like longer variants. I got a lot of comments on that. Some people want more short videos, just seeing the replays and quick replays, and some want a live commentary. So sometimes I do the live gameplay, but more often I don't have time for it and just do the replays and trying to keep it short, around 30-40 minutes. I think that's a reasonable time to spend on watching one gameplay video. So I'm not really a fan of 2-3 hours. I think about myself and start trying to see these things. I don't want to spend 2 hours doing it, but I enjoy like seeing 20-30 minutes of that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's perfect. So that's my feedback for you.
Okay.
Keep doing it.
Okay,
I love
thank
it.
you. Thank you.
But yeah, I definitely highly recommend Josip or Dack's YouTube channel. We'll have links to it in the episode description. And when we get to the deck lists that we'll talk about later in the show, each list also has a YouTube video, so you can go and watch the gameplay. You can see these decks in action. It's great stuff. So before we dive into all of that, I just want to get to know you a little bit better, Josip, as a player, as a brewer. I mainly see you playing Modern. Is that your favorite format, or what's your range?
Yeah, for the last year and a half, or maybe last 2 years, Modern has been my only format. I haven't played anything else for 2 years. Before that, I was the EDH guy. Okay, so
okay.
I constantly had like maybe 7, 8 decks ready to play, and they were all kind of very sick brews that the people just weren't ready for. And I think that's where I got the creativity to and like passion to innovate in the Magic.
That was going to be my next question because, a lot of people love Modern, but not everyone has the fortitude to build something new and just like put it through the ringer.
Yeah.
It's tough to brew in Modern especially, but you're doing it with a new deck every day.
Yeah, kind of most often just brew one deck a day. I'm not a full-time streamer like Young Dingo, Aspiring Spike, and guys like that, but I play moderately and moderate. I play sometimes a lot, sometimes a bit less, but I don't play as much as these guys. But I do play a good amount of Magic, and often every game I play ends up online on YouTube. Sometimes I just get to the good run, and every league ends up 4-1, 5-0, 4-1, 4-1, 5-0. So every league goes on YouTube, and I record almost everything I play at the times. Like through the last month, almost everything I played went to my YouTube channel, and yeah, that's it.
I mean, the results are amazing, and often when I see you describing the list, I'll read how you describe the deck, and I'll think that can't be good. But then I watch the games, and it's not just that the decks are good, but it's that you take very intelligent lines. I'm like, oh, okay, actually, I would not have seen that play. So you can learn a lot from this channel. It's a great channel.
Yeah, I sometimes enjoy playing really really bad decks that can get a good result in any way, and that's the reason why my what is it called, my MTGO score total like that.
Yeah, the ELO rating, the constructed rating.
Yeah, I have a low rating because I play really bad decks at the times, and I just can't stop playing them, and I lose a lot. And but that score quickly goes up and down. So after 3 days of playing Domain Zoo, that score can get from 1,600 to 1,800, like in 2 days. It just doesn't matter that much. Yeah, it's just a silly number. Okay, so but people often comment on that on my channel, like you have a low score, and you always post YouTube videos where you're winning, so that's the reason.
So I notice on your channel that you're often playing something that we would describe as aggro decks, right? Whether it's Zoo, I mean, I talk a lot on this podcast about Crabvine. I see you playing all kinds of Vengevine decks, Crabvine, Hollowvine. So is aggro like your favorite style, or are you?
Yeah, I play everything. I play control, I play combo, I play aggro, play mid-range, and mid-range is maybe my favorite modern archetypes. But I always loved graveyard strategies and five-color decks. So five-color decks and graveyard strategies have always been my thing, and people know me by that. My
Hmm.
friends from my LGS knows that I'm a guy that will either come with some graveyard interaction or will play a five-color deck. So, but I play everything, and I have experience playing a lot of different strategies in Modern, a lot of different archetypes from Narset Days Undoing to Domain
Hmm.
Zoo through. Actually, I have a Legacy Cube, which we play often, and my favorite archetype in that cube is a Storm. So I often
Oh
play a
wow.
Storm in a cube, and really like it. I just don't like the modern version that much, but I like the Legacy version a lot. And so I like that archetype too, and I'm open to playing these type of decks. So I just play it less because it's less fun for my opponents in real life to play against that. Yeah.
I think that's an important consideration. I mean, it takes a lot to get two people sitting across the table from each other. You want
Yeah,
to make
you
sure
don't.
that it's an
Yeah,
interesting match
yeah,
for both players.
yeah. I kind of stopped playing EDH because I had that. I built a storm deck in EDH, and nobody wanted to play against me. So
Oh
I was
no.
like, oh my god, guys, I have a difficult time creating the deck. I can't find the time to build it again, to go all through all the cards. I can't find the time to build another deck, and nobody just wanted to play against me. So that ended up badly, and I ended up sticking to Modern and MTGO.
So, if I could ask you some theory questions about brewing, I would love to get your perspective as someone who brews new decks every day. Just like how you approach building a new deck, or specifically, since we're on the verge of a brand new set, how do you evaluate new cards? Right? We have March of the Machine coming out next week. We've just seen the full preview. So, when you're confronted, for example, with new cards, like what are you looking for?
I'm always thing is you have to play a lot of Magic. When you play a lot of Magic, then you encounter some difficult matchups for the certain decks. You try to solve that problem. But when you lose like one game to some strategy, it is fine. When you lose the second game to the same strategy, like let's say Blood Moon, that is like you get a bit frustrated. When you lose three, four of them in a row, you get really frustrated, angry, and you're seeking for solutions. So
Hmm.
for example, my last domain zoo tech was adding Hex Drinker to the list, as I played a lot against a lot of blue red decks at the time, and they were just all jamming Blood Moon to the main. So my response to the Murktide decks jamming Blood Moon in the main was adding three Hex Drinkers in the main, and also the list had the Miglos already there. So I was just jammed three Hex Drinkers, and I just can't describe how good Hex Drinker was against that Blood Moon. My blue-red opponents were often faced with a line. They either play the Blood Moon, let the Hex Drinker live, or just play it, and then I untap, put three counters on Hex Drinker, and they can't deal with it for the rest of the game. So that was the idea, and it works very well in theory. You play it as a last threat you have in hand. They use their bolts, they heat, and then you just level it up three times. Or just if you have to play it in the beginning, you just don't force the leveling up, but you just put one level, then threaten to put another two on the next turn, and they will really prioritize killing the Hex Drinker with Unholy Heat, even if you have Territorial Kavu on the board, which is, yeah, like really good. So Hexdrinker ended up being really good in that matchup, but it's mediocre in some other matchups like Amulet Titan. It's just another creature which Arbolier Tracer totally stops. So a lot of these cards that ended up being like flex slot cards in Domain Zoo deck are really metagame dependent and can be great in some metagames while being mediocre in the others. So you really have to adjust to your local metagame and tournament you're deciding to going for and stuff like that. Yeah. But if you're playing on MTGO, I'm trying to have the most fresh and list on my channel always as a kind of a go-to list to play at the moment for the MTGO gameplay.
So in the Domain Zoo example that you just gave, so you're starting with a deck in mind, right? Like I'm playing Domain Zoo and you're thinking through what are the problems that I'm facing and you're trying to find very creative solutions for those problems.
Yeah, you're just solving the problems as you find them. Yeah, so it is different when you're updating the existing deck, and it's different when you're trying to brew something from zero. Yeah, so when you're trying to brew some unexisting new deck from zero, like a Sparring Spike also does on the
Mm-hmm.
daily basis, you have to think about what strategy would be good in the current metagame. And so you like everybody's playing Blood Moon, so you just focus on the one or two color strategy that could be good, or you just some strategy that could play Blood Moon by itself. Then find some cards that can be built around and or that can be just good in the current meta game, and try to find those cards to fit them either into existing shells or some forgotten modern strategies, some decks that were good in 2016 but people
Mm-hmm.
forgot about it. I often do that. I have a lot of memory from modern. I play for a long time. So I try to think like all the decks that were good but forgotten, and can I do something? Does some new card exist which can make it playable again or even really competitive? For example, two latest lists that I have on my channel, which I did 5.0 with, was Winota Reanimator list, the Mardu list, and
Yes.
blue white Orzo Scam Blade with gigs. So Orzo Scam Blade, for example, is existing list, and it was really popular like a year or 2 years ago, and I really like it at the time. I played a lot of it. I had my Abzan version at the time. I played it with the Yorion. It was pretty good, and I really liked that gigs card when I first saw it, and I tested it in some other builds, and I came to conclusion this card is working well. It's a card that is played in Vintage Cube, so it says something. Card played in Vintage Cube has to have some very good potential. It's just a matter of can you exploit that in the modern. But I think that is exploitable in modern. It's not just card that you can play in this deck. I think it's underplayed and it can be played in some other similar strategies with tokens maybe or with small creatures. It could also be playable in different kind of low to the ground black-white list, not just a scam version, but a rock version, for example. I think it could be even better in a rock version, but just a scam blade has a higher power level than a rock version, which was like more popular a few years ago when elementals didn't exist. And Winota Reanimator, I came slowly to that build. I'm active in Zoo Discord, as you know, and
Mm-hmm.
I forced the people there to create a Winota channel. And I was writing a lot in that Winota channel, and the people like get their thoughts on some lists I made. And I was coming slowly to that build. I had two Mardu builds before that one. I This build started with Nahiri, the new Planeswalker from the last set, and I was trying to make a Mardu build using Nahiri in a Vinota deck, as there are a lot of creatures in that deck costing 2-3 mana that Nahiri can get back. So in theory, it was okay.
We're talking about the new Nahiri, right? The Nahiri, the Unforgiving.
The new Nahiri, the Pyrexia Nahiri. Yeah, the Pyrexia Nahiri. Pyrexia Nahiri, that bit started with that card. And I was using Lightning Skelemental actually as one of the payouts for Nahiri. And I got 4-1 with that build, but it was missing something because Lightning Skelemental would go to the graveyard, and it didn't work well with Winota because you would, I think you in Winota build, you want to build the board presence, and Skelemental wasn't really doing that. So I decided to get rid of it and made a second build using I was using both two strategies all the time. Like I had that unearthed strategy with the Skelemental at the time, and I also had Winota win. Then I realized I could just remove the unearthed, get the Gorios in, and put a really good, really powerful reanimator target in like Grizzlebrand. Atraxa wasn't really an option there. Grizzlebrand seemed better because it draws you 7 cards. I think you can draw 14 cards and get to the state where you just have unbeatable 7 cards in hand for anything your opponent does. And it also, Goriel works well with Winota. It gets back the Winota, and that is the play you will go more often than you really think. And because bringing back Winota will at the times be even better than bringing back Grizzlebrand when you have like 4 or 5 attackers and you get 4 or 5 Winota abilities. That's game over. Nobody can beat this. So it comes up very often, but people don't know how to play against it. That's the deal, because they sometimes board in a lot of graveyard hate and you just beat them with Winota. Sometimes they just focus on killing the Winota, killing the creatures, and then you just play Gorios, bring back Grizzlebrand, draw 14 cards, deal 7, and it has a lot of angles of attack, which is always hard to play around, and also some good sideboard targets like Magos of the Moon, which is also Winota target, can be played earlier with Ragavan Treasure and stuff. So also Ranger of Eos has some interesting targets in this deck, like Insolent Neonate, which is very good. One-off in a deck like best one-off you can have, just ditching that Grizzlebrand to the graveyard when you need it, and it's great to have it, and it just doesn't take much place. Also, you have a Force Tender on the sideboard. You have that Giant Killer that is very good against Elesh, which is you just play Ranger Captain of Eos on 3, and you have your Giant Killer in hand. A lot of these Omna decks at this moment just trying to play that turn 5 Elesh using Eldrami's Call. And it's a really neat solution for to beat that strategy. And I have it also terminates on the sideboard, of course, as additional hate. And you just MTGO leagues are really weird. Yeah, it's much different from playing challenges, preliminaries. So 1 week there is one meta game, another week there is another game. You just have to play a lot to be really familiar what to expect in the league. And sometimes I can just guess what my 2 or 3 games out of 5 will be, and just prepare decently for it, and try to get the trophy. Yeah, of course. That's it.
Yeah, I love this Winota Reanimator list, and I was not aware of the history of the evolution of the deck, because when I look at it now, the finished product, it just looks genius, right? It's Winota Joiner of Forces. You know you need a mix of non-humans and humans, but what I had never occurred to me was that you could use these graveyard setup creatures, right? So you have Ragavans and Stitcher Suppliers and Scrapwork mods.
Yes.
And then your humans, it's not just the Ranger Captain, it's not just the Seasoned Pyromancer, but it's also Priest of Felrites, which is a human that can then reanimate sometimes a Gristlebrand. But I mean, realistically, every time Winota came into play, it seemed like you got a massive advantage just watching the games play out.
Yeah.
Like that seemed like the most important card, better than Gristlebrand.
Yeah, Winota is the plan A. in that deck.
Mhm.
So Winota is plan A, and the Grizzleband is a plan B. So when I played against that Eldrazi, I think opponent in my videos, I just went for turn 2 Gorios on Grizzlebrand, and he said, "Oh my God, why I have to play against this in my trophy game?" Okay, so I just randomly attacked them for 7 with haste, draw into 14 cards, and had the perfect hand for the rest of the game, which was just unbeatable for him. And I had at any point I had like 2 Grizzlebands in the graveyard with the Gorios. I had multiple Spyros in my hand, multiple Vinotas, so everything I needed to win the game against everything my opponent tries to play. So and sometimes that happens, and sometimes you just beat your opponent with scrapwork mats, Spyro tokens, and stuff like that. That's also plan C. Sometimes you just don't get either Winota or Grizzlebrand. Sometimes you just play a beatdown like Yagmoth does at the time. Just beat them with undying creatures, and that's it. So
Yeah. I mean, you just tell them, actually, sorry, sir, it's actually my trophy game.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry about that.
yeah,
That's not sorry.
yeah.
No, these are great games. I love watching this deck. Well, while we're on the subject, let's talk about some of your decks. So, Winota Reanimator, great deck. We'll put a link to all of these so you can watch the YouTube videos, also on Dack Fayden 07 YouTube channel. But can I ask you about Urborg Lhurgoyf? I need to ask you about this card. Because I think I talked to you the most in the Crabvine Discord and the Hollowvine Discord.
Yeah.
And this to me is a controversial card, but I think to you, this is just a new staple, and I see you doing amazing things with it.
Yeah, when I first saw the Urborg Lhurgoyf, yeah, I saw like Magic 8's video, and he was like, "This is the new Goyf, really?" And there were pretty bad comments about it, but I immediately saw it in a Crabvine list, and I think just works well with the Crab. Crab makes him huge very early, and it's very hard to deal for this damage-based removal decks like all blue-red decks, Fair Breach, Murktide, whatever. Don't play Prismatic Ending or Solitude. Just have a really hard time dealing with this. And often I just find myself casting 2 Urborg Lhurgoyfs with the kicker ability in the game, and then just winning the game. And after I'd done that a few times, I realized the high potential in that card. And at this moment, I really consider it a staple for that kind of decks. I saw Aspiring Spike, for example, using the Ledger Shredder in the Hollow Wine builds. There was other brewers trying some other cards, but I think Urborg Lhurgoyf beats all of that for the Hollow Wine builds. We talked some more, of course, for the Crabvine builds. You said that for you it seems better in the Hollow Wine builds than in the Crabvine builds. I think it is good in Sultai Crabvine builds too, but I think
Hmm.
maybe the Temur Hollow One is more explosive and can use it better. They also have lures and inquiries which can grow him pretty quick. Not just the crab, has neonates which are street raids. I'm insane with the Urborg Lhurgoyf.
Hmm.
Street raid, neonate, it's just really good enablers. Additional enablers for the Goyf. Not just you don't just depend so much on crab and. So maybe in that manner, it is a bit better in the Temur Hollow Wine, but Sultai Crab Wine is, in my opinion, a bit slower deck. It can't go as aggressive and as a Temur and just win on turn 3,
Hmm.
or sometimes I even had a turn 2 win. But it also, of course, can also be very quick. But I think Goif brings some mid-range feel to the deck, and it gives it the value the no other one card can give. So it's both enabler and a payoff. There is no other card in the modern that is in that deck that is both enabler and a payoff. It is unique because of that, and that's why I consider it a staple for these strategies. And it for me it has been really good. I just can see it being trimmed to like 2 off, 3 off, stuff like that, but really don't see, don't want to play a list without any copies of that card. Yeah.
Yeah, everything you're saying makes sense. Often, where I find myself disagreeing with you is that when we're looking at the details of, okay, how do we actually fit all this stuff into the deck, I find that you have a higher tolerance for going a lower land count and for keeping one land hands. Whereas often I kind of just, I don't want to go below 20 or 19, but not just for Hollowvine, you'll often play 18 or 17, and that allows you to actually do some really cool innovations. Like you have a league where you've incorporated Malakir Rebirth and Grief into a Vengevine, like a Sultai deck. So it's like a scam version of Sultai.
I agree. I'm trying to that version plays 16 lands plus 3 Malakir Rebirths. That's total of 19 lands. And the usual Sultai Crabvine list play 18, 19 lands. So that is the same amount of lands, but
well, for me, you have to play 20. I think 20 is as a safer number, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I played 20 in the regular version. Yeah. I also played 20 in my regular version without Grief. In the Grief version, I had to find some spots there, and the Malakir Rebirths are the easiest solutions. So you get the land that is a real enabler for Grief. And I played 19 lands in that list, and it worked well for the few leagues I tried it in. But as you said, yeah, it's that mana base can be a bit problematic, and you play a low amount of shocks. So if you get to mill a few of them early with your crab, you will be in a problem definitely. Yeah, that's the minus of that list. If you just mill a few of your shocks early in the game, you might put yourself in a big problem. So you can't have everything. You can have a perfect mana base plus all of that. But I think there is something I need to work on. That list was very interesting. I felt like a really just a higher power level because obviously you can beat any deck when you scam Fury on turn 1. There is like no deck you can beat when you do this, and just being able to do this play in a deck that really has some strong single cards you can play after. So it felt like a really good thing. So most problem after scamming Grief on turn 1 for the scam decks is you scam it and then you have no good plays after. But this deck really has cards like top decks that can just solely win the game, like Crab plus Fetch and that kind of stuff. Like also Goyf. Goyf with Kicker is just can be very, very big threat. And that's it. Okay, that's it for that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting solution to a problem that a graveyard deck often has. The graveyard plan usually beats most things in game 1, but not always, right? Sometimes if they're on a linear game plan, they're just better than what you're doing or they're faster than you. The grief scam, if let's just call it a grief scam, it creates like a broken down game state, right? Where you've spent a lot of your resources, but you've taken them off their plan. And in the broken down game state, the graveyard deck always wins, right?
Yeah,
whatever you're doing, just getting back some random Norcamoebas is going to be better than whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, that Sultai Crab has traditional problems with Sanctifier and Doughty Voidwalker. There are definitely cards you can play on the sideboard that are that can destroy those cards, but it's still hard cards for this deck to deal with. And having Grief in the main just can totally get you into good position if you're able to scam it in a game 2 or game 3, and you can just often win by just scamming Grief and doing one following play. And it's very powerful, as most listeners know. Yeah, just scamming Grief is a tier 1 strategy in Modern at the time.
Well, speaking of scam, can I ask you about the zoo scam?
Oh yeah,
What you call the zoo scam?
Yeah,
I'd never heard this term before.
I call it the Zoo Scam. Yeah, it's a fun name. And basically, I try to brew with the Melira card. Melira was a new card after the release, and I brewed with some of the cards before that, and it was time to do something with Melira. I was like, what is the best thing I can do with this creature? It's a definite answer was like sacrifice it on the elementals evoke ability. So I started with that, and it was a card that started appearing in some zoo decks as a one-off. People would try it as a one-off, and I really liked the card when I saw it in that list, and I said I'll try something in Zoo with this list. So my additional idea was just playing Fury, Solitudes, Evoke Elementals, and just try to cheat them in. But what is good about I played. I didn't create a final list immediately. I put it in a classic Cascade Zoo shell, and had Bloodbraid
Mm-hmm.
Elves, General Rokiric, Shardless Agent, and then I started my first game. I had Fury in hand. My opponent had a bunch of creatures on their side, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, like I can't kill it. I really need my Melira, and then I cast my Shardless Agent. Just couldn't find that Melira, and then I cast my Shardless Agent, and I cascaded into Melira, and it was like, wow. I just cascaded into Ephemerate. I can cast like that's like really good. At that moment, it opened up that whole strategy to me. That reason because it's really good. It's like Ephemerate you can find of your Cascade cards. So you just find it with your Shardless Agent, Bloodbraid Elf, and it's there on the field. So your opponent, it's threatening your opponent like it's really hard situation to look at, and you really want to kill that Melira. Yeah, you really wanted to get rid of it because you're scared of it scamming the Fury or something bad happening to you. But then you try to go bolt it or solitude it or whatever, and then you try to kill it, and then in response, I scam my solitude in, and I get the bolt out of your hand. I get your creature, I get your second creature, and I get incredible value in that situation. And it's really hard for opponent to deal with it because they really have to get rid of that Melira. If they don't do it, you will get access to more and more good plays for the rest of the game. So they really have to deal with it, and it's really a high reward if you have Solitude in your hand at the time they're trying to do it. And of course, if they have some creatures on the field, you can exile with Solitude, and you get a crazy value and just getting rid of their removal plus getting rid of two creatures can be really good, of course. After brewing that list and doing the 5-0 with that list, I immediately had another brew in mind, and it was the Zoo Evolution deck. Same is happening in that deck too, because we just don't have a Melira in that deck. We have Safi Eric's daughter. And I also play elementals in that list, but not just because I can scam it with Safi, but also they are there because of the Eldritch Evolution. And the thing that was played in the past in the Eldritch Evolution Zoo deck was sacrificing Scion of Jacob to find a Progenitus or to find a 13 mana Miracle and stuff like that. But getting Atraxa is just way more powerful. That card is really, really good. And this way you have 10 creatures in your deck or more, depending on how many elementals you play. You have 10, 11 creatures in your deck that you can put Eldritch Evolution to find the Atraxa, which ends the game in a lot of situations. But the thing is, you can also scam your elemental on turn 2 using Saphirix Daughter, and then also use Eldritch Evolution on your Solitude on turn 3 to again find the Atraxa. So a lot more targets for Eldritch Evolution. Is not just Sign of Jacob that can be sacked, but also what was the problem with this deck in the past, sacrificing Sign of Jacob to Eldritch Evolution against the Murktide deck. That was a big, big problem because Sign of Jacob is obviously a very good threat in that matchup. It dodges the bolt and only heat gets it. So you really don't want to sacrifice your own Sign of Jacob in that matchup. But when you have Safi, it's really not a problem. You just stack Safi on your Scion. And worst case scenario is if they counter, they play counter spell, they play spell pierce, so Eldritch Evolution can be really weak in that matchup. But when you sack Safi prior to the Eldritch Evolution, casting Eldritch Evolution, then if they counter it, you just lose your Safi and of course spell that gets countered, but it's not a complete blowout. Safi ends up in your graveyard, but anyway, that's the place you want to have it in your graveyard. It's same if you have it on your graveyard or on the field. It's really not doesn't matter because when Relier enters the battlefield, it will bring back Safi to the play in 90% of situations. So losing Safi just doesn't matter. And you also have 4 of them in your deck. It's a legendary, so you just don't care if it's in your graveyard because it will always be a Relier target, even when it's in your graveyard. So it just wasn't that much of a blowout play losing Scion to the Eldritch Evolution. And that's the reason, plus some other reasons like having Atraxa as a very good new target, plus Elementals, of course, as an option to sack on Eldritch. And that's what I think made this deck much better than the previous iterations of Eldritch Evolution Zoo. And I think this is not just a meme deck, meme a strategy, but a real deal. And Young Dingo, streamer, he streams on Twitch, and he changed my list to include 4 Ragavans in instead of Brennan 6, and had 8th place in preliminary last week. So it's also another good showing from the deck. And I had multiple 4-1s, but I still didn't play deck enough to get the 5-0, but I'm definitely sure it's just a matter of time when I get to play it some more, and I have really high hopes for the strategy.
So we don't talk a lot about Zoo on this podcast, so listeners may not be entirely familiar with the card Melira the Living Cure. This is from Phyrexia, All Will Be One. It's 2 mana for a 3/3. You exile it to perform an effect very similar to Safi Eriksdotter. So they're similar in that you describe them both as ephemeres that you can cascade into, but they attack and block as well.
Yeah.
However, a key difference, right, is that Melira has to exile to do her effect, whereas Safi does not. So Safi becomes this combo piece you're describing.
Yeah, with the Renegade Rail. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think in your videos you point out that a bunch of times, as long as you have those 2 cards, the Safi can be in the graveyard, it doesn't matter. It's an unbreakable battlefield duo, right? They can't get through that.
They're unbreakable champ. Yeah, so I played against a well-known player, I think yesterday. I had a Renegade Relier and Safi on the field, and my opponent played Fury. That was.
I mean, it's a nice idea for them. Probably didn't work out the way they hoped it would.
Yeah, it didn't work out the way they hoped it would because I just they targeted both of my creatures. I just sacrificed Safi to target Relier. Relier died, bring back Safi, and they immediately conceded the game. So they just pitch casted the Fury to kill 2 of my creatures, and nothing nothing happened. And so they just conceded the game.
The shame concede, the shame
Yeah,
scoop.
the shame concede, the shame scoop, yeah. So the thing I forgot to mention, of course, another target in that deck, which gives a deck infinite combo, is
Yes.
Falkenrath Aristocrat. That's maybe a well-known card for some people that played Standard maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
More than that, 6-7 years ago.
Maybe 6-7 years ago, but not really a card that sees play in Modern. But it fits this strategy very well. It's infinite combo with Renegade Relier and Safi Eriksdotter.
Yeah, this is genius. This is brilliant. I love this.
Yeah, I thought the card that combos with those 2 doesn't exist, and I was just thinking a lot about it. Is there anything, any creature I could play? I could obviously play Goblin Bombardment in that deck to combo off with Safi and Relier, but Goblin Bombardment by itself is just so weak.
Yeah.
When you just use it to combo off, and you won't have a combo every time. So I really needed for that payoff to be a creature, and I remembered Falkenrath Aristocrat like it was I don't know I remembered it in last second before giving up on deck. I was about to give up because I just couldn't play the Goblin Bombardment. It was too bad to play it in that deck. And I remember the Falconite Aristocrat included it. And the first game I played with the deck, I actually just hardcasted Falconite Aristocrat on 4 and beat down my opponent with a 4/1 flyer that he tried to bolt, but I played Solitude in the response and gave it indestructible. So it's just to survive and beat down opponent for 3 turns for 12 damage. And I said, wow, well, this card can maybe be good even without a combo. And after I played more, I realized it is working pretty well in the deck just by itself. It's a combo piece that kills your opponent immediately with a flying haster, which also gets indestructible. Aristocrat says when you sacrifice a creature, it gets indestructible. But also, if a sacrificed creature is human, it gets a +1 counter, and both Relier and the Safi are humans. So they both put counters on Aristocratic Sector, and he gets infinite counters and has flying and haste, and it's a evasive creature with indestructible, and in most situations you will win the game on the spot. So really, really fun creature combo, and you're already playing 4 Eldritch Evolutions in your deck because of the Atraxa and the Scion interaction, also your Elemental plus Atraxa interaction. So it's just free to include one of Aristocrat as a possible combo win for the deck, and it just works very well. I think it could be a really serious modern deck if but I understand that people are a bit skeptical of its power level when seeing the list, and they need more evidence of a deck performing well, like that Young Dingo a preliminary result got 8th place with it. I think it could definitely help if I do a few more 5-0s with it, and we'll see.
This could be another example of, a forgotten modern deck that you're giving new life to, because Safi Eriksdotter, that used to be kind of a fringe combo. You could do Safi and Renegade Rallier, and people would typically pair that with Altar of Dementia. It just wasn't very good. The whole problem was it's a graveyard combo with 3 pieces, and the fact that it's a graveyard combo means that they don't really get any benefit from having a 2/2 and a 3/2. But you've solved all those problems at the same time, right? This is a zoo aggro deck, so when you have a 2/2 and a 3/2, you're actually attacking for a lot of damage. They're meaningful creatures on the battlefield. You've taken away the graveyard component. So yes, a graveyard hate will still stop this particular combo, but you'll still beat them down with it. The Falconwrath Aristocrat is still a 4-power haste flyer that's hard to kill. So I don't think graveyard hate really works against this deck.
Yeah, and it's also very good creatures to have on the field when playing against some aggro strategies like tribal strategies in Modern or Death and Taxes, stuff like that, because you have 2 blockers on the field that can never die. So they're always there. If they don't have Solitude, they can't get rid of them. So you will just block 2 creatures every combat, and you will sack Safi, and you will get both them back again, and they just can't get rid of it. If you're playing against Merfolk, playing against humans, especially humans, for example, and they have like 10/10 Talia's Lieutenant, and you just blocking it with your Relier Safi, and you just don't care. They can't get rid of it. They can, but it's very hard for them to get rid of it. As just infinite blockers on the field, just by having those 2 creatures. And then at some situation, you top deck Eldritch Evolution, you sacrifice your Safi on Relier, sacrifice Relier on Eldritch Evolution, get Aristocrat. They both come back, and you just put infinite counters on Aristocrat, attack with haste and flying, and that's the idea.
I love it. Love it. All right. So you have multiple versions of Zoo. You have Zoo with the Melira Scam. You have Zoo with the Eldritch Evolution combo. You have regular Zoo.
Yeah.
And you have many 5-0s with all of these.
Yeah, I would also like to mention the regular Zoo. Maybe I was best known for brewing the Zoo list that is widely played right now. Like after the Dominaria United release, I brewed the list with Nishoba Brawler, Wild Mecatl, and 4 Stubborn Denials, Leyline Bindings, that were all brand new cards at the moment. And I started playing the list, and I got 19-1 score with the list.
19-1.
Yeah, 19-1, and that one loss was just a misplay. So it could easily go 20-0, and I put it on my YouTube. At the point, I had maybe 200 subscribers, and or maybe 300, and those videos got like 5K views, which was like really incredible.
Wow.
My first 4 zoo videos each got like about 3,000 views, and I was just starting with YouTube at the moment, so I was just had like 200 subscribers, and every video I made had like 3,000 views, which was incredible at the moment. And of course, now the deck is got too big, and it evolved. I can't call it mine now, but it initially that was what I was best known for doing. Other than that, at my early beginnings on the MTGO, I brewed a Seismic Assault list and a 5-0 with that list multiple times, and it was kind of popular for a short period of time as one player got third place in the challenge. And I saw that in writings you did before the interview, you said question you wanted to ask me, what do you think you are best known for? So that was the thing I was best known in the very early beginnings, the Seismic Assault list. And after creating the channel and getting more serious with it, it was definitely the regular zoo list. There was just incredible amount of people contacting me after my Reddit post about this zoo list and the score I got with it. Just incredible amount of people contacted me. I made a sideboard guide, put it on Reddit, and there was hundreds of people contacting me, like saying, "I just won my RCQ with your list. Thank you." Then I really got at least 50, 60 kind of messages of people winning their RCQs or got really good placement in the RCQs, some stuff like that. So it was a really good reaction.
And deservedly so. I mean, it's a beautiful list. You put in the work. Creating the sideboard guide is awesome content. I see you have that on your YouTube as well in one of the videos. The sideboard guide is there.
Yeah, my last zoo video after the release of the last version, I created an updated list with Miglos in the main. I think Miglos stuck with the deck. Most people played in the main or side. Also had 2 minor missteps in at the time, and I created the sideboard guide for that version too. Shared it on Reddit and shared it in a video description of my last zoo video. So you can, if you like to play that version, you can find the sideboard guide in the video description of my latest video.
So, Josip, I want to ask you about the new set, March of the Machine. Okay. But before we do that, are there any other decks of yours that you want to talk about before we move on?
Okay, let me just. Okay, I wanted really to talk about the newest video from my channel. It was the Rokiric Rhinos, because it's really getting very strong results in the last 10 days.
I have a big questions about this list because it's like a Crashing Footfalls deck, but you also have a 2-drop in there, and I would love to know why. Like, why? What was the thought process behind this?
Okay, the thought process was that there's hundreds of people playing a Cascade deck with their best Cascade payoff being Territorial Cow, and that is the people playing the Cascade Zoo deck. Yeah. So there are a lot of decks, a lot of people, just their only goal of playing those Cascade decks is trying to cascade into Territorial Cow. They were getting good results by trying to do that. So there are also a whole other group of people playing their Cascade spells to cast Crashing Footfalls, of course, yeah. So
okay.
Rhino players were really skeptic about having the 2-drop. And
exactly.
And like zoo players were, why do you play Rhinos where you can just cascade into Kavu? Oh, so okay, so and
all right.
Okay, so it is really
2 worlds collide here, two different universes.
Yeah, it's 2 different universes colliding, but both of these cascade targets are really good. And what makes a deck really interesting, it's not having these two cascade targets at the same time in the deck, but your post-board games. I think this deck can really shine in situations where regular rhinos are good, well positioned, but also when they encounter a great amount of cascade hate. So a lot of these wins, initially, a lot of these wins were people playing Chalice of the Void, game 2, holding one blue mana open for Flusterstorm, and you play your Violent Outburst end of turn, and they're like, oh, I got you. And you and you cascade into Territorial Cow, and they're like, there's a big pause, like nothing's happening. They're not reacting, and they're just confused, don't know what to do. They're holding their Flusterstorm, which does nothing. Their Chalice of the Void is on the field, and that was the reason they kept their hand, and they have nothing else. That is it. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. So, did you sideboard out the Crashing Footfalls, or did you leave both in?
Yeah.
Because I've seen in some of your games you side out the Kavus sometimes.
It's a very confusing mind games against your opponent.
Yeah.
So you have to get some experience playing the deck prior to making good decisions about your sideboarding plan. And you really have to know your opponent's deck and what are they sideboarding against you. So if you're expecting a Chalice of the Void plus Flusterstorm, I would really advise to side out all Rhinos and play just Kavu. But also there are a lot of situations like decks like Grixis Shadow, they're playing a lot of Dress Downs and Blood Moon, like Murktide also playing Dress Down plus Blood Moon, where Kavu can be verse a cascade target. So Blue Red Murktide and Red Black Scam are two examples where I trim on Kavu but don't completely cut it because it's still very good, can be very good against that, but Rhinos is a superior target for those matchups because against a Red Black Scam, they can scam Grief on turn 1, but when you just play your Shardless Agent on turn 2 and get the Crashing Footfalls, they did nothing. You're just completely back into the game, and their scamming Grief on turn 1 is completely taken care of, and if they don't have Fury to scam, again, you are just winning that game. Of course, sometimes against Blood Moon decks, it makes sense to trim a bit on Kavu, as you really don't play any other Blood Moon dependent cards other than Kavu Leyline Binding. So in those games, just by fetching two basics, you're mostly very secure against Blood Moon decks. With just one forest, you can cast your Violent Outburst, Bloodbraid Elves, and with just one plains, you can cast your General Rokiric. So having those two basics on the field mostly mean that you can play 90% of your deck even with the Blood Moon on the field, and I think just Blood Moon hasn't worked against this deck in any examples I had so far. So, and this deck can really post-board play as regular Rhinos, and just one basic or two basic. Sometimes if you have two outbursts, you just need one forest, and you get two Rhinos, and in most situations that will end the game by itself, and it just plays very well against it. So in some other situations, of course, either of these targets can be trimmed. I mostly trim either Rhinos or Cows, but sometimes I just completely take out all of the targets. For example, against Yawgmoth, I take out all territorial Cows because they are bad against their creatures with Undying, and they just block Cow very well. And Rhinos is really a superior target for those matchups.
So the Cascade minigame, Crashing Footfalls and Territorial Kavu, is half of what's interesting about the deck. The second part that is really unexpected if you're just thinking of this as a Crashing Footfalls deck is Footfalls. Rhinos players have maybe 8 Cascade spells, sometimes 9. You have 14, right? You have 4 Shardless Agent, you have 4 Violent Outburst, and 2 Ardent Plea, because these are all gold cards that support General Ferrous Rokiric. Yeah. And you didn't stop there. You also played 4 Bloodbraid Elf, which might get the Footfalls, might get the Territorial Kavu, or it might get one of your 3-drops. Okay, so there's another very important thing I have to mention about this deck. So
I played this deck before and trophied with this deck like 6-7 months ago multiple times. And at the
Okay.
time, I wasn't playing General Ferris Rokiric,
Mm-hmm.
so there wasn't a general in this deck. And I played it for fun. It wasn't really. It was good, but not crazy competitive. But once I added general, I found out that a lot of the best decks in the format right now really can't deal with General Ferris Rokiric. It's a very good creature to play against Blue-Red Murktide, even against Scam, although they play some Terminates nowadays. But it's great against Omnat decks. A lot of these Blue-Red decks just don't have a solution for it. Only very good solution that is being commonly played at the Modern is Brennan 6. Also, there are multiple ways you can play around Brennan 6 and don't go for the general on turn 3, but bit later, prepare yourself for a longer game. And as you mentioned, there is incredible amount of Cascaders in this deck that each get very strong, powerful targets, so there is just no stopping for the value this deck can sometimes provide. And you're in a lot of situations, you can just put like 10 power on the field of each turn for like 5-6 turns in a row, which can be pretty crazy, but it can be very meaningful when playing against like 4-color Omnat decks, which will multiple times scam their Solitude in, ephemerate it, and just deal with a lot of pressure. But very important thing I want to mention is when you put General Ferris Rokiric on the field on the turn 3, it doesn't matter if you cascade into Kavu or Rhinos, because you get same amount of almost same amount of power. It's even better to cascade into Kavu when you have a Rokiric on the field. You get one more power. So it's that is the thing that really made the deck much more viable. So once you get the Rokiric in, it doesn't matter if you cascade into Kavu or Rhinos, because if you play your Shardless Agent, you're getting the 4/4 Golem from Rokiric. If you hit the Kavu, you're getting additional 4/4 Golem from Rokiric and the 5/5 Kavu. If you hit Rhinos, you get 1 Golem and 2 Rhinos. So you're getting more power if you hit the Kavu. That is the really important thing to notice in this deck, because just having a lot of people were didn't want to play this deck because they saw Kau as inferior cascade target. But once you have Rokiric on the field, it doesn't matter. It becomes better than cascading. It gets you more power than cascading into Rhinos, and it also gets you the really powerful creature that has a really good ability. Other than that, you know that Scion of Draco was really popular in a 4-color Rhinos build, and the main thing people had against it, they can't suspend the footfalls on turn 1 if they want to play turn 2 Scion. But you can suspend turn 1 Rhinos and play turn 2 Territorial Cabo. It doesn't disrupt the turn 1 suspend footfalls, which is like very relevant in that deck, and you just can't believe how many times you have option to suspend turn 1 footfalls, and often it ends up being really important. And yeah, people like were one of the main reasons why people were against the Sign of Jacob was I can't suspend my Rhinos on 1. So that was a big deal for Rhino players. Yeah.
This is a fascinating take on the deck. It looks super explosive, and we'll of course have links to all of this. You can watch Josip play this on his YouTube channel.
Also, I want to mention, give a shout out to the MTGO player, Sydney Dude, which placed third in the last week challenge, 31st March, and got a 8-1 with a very similar list, but he opted to remove Rhinos.
Oh, wow.
To remove Rhinos from the list, and to remove 4 Cascade spells, to add 4 Sign of Dracos in and 4 Dead and Gone. So other than that, list was other than mana base, because he had some more red spells, so he added up different shocks and fetches to support more red spells. And other than that, the list was pretty similar. And I think this is also another very good option If you're hating having both rhinos and cows, I think he made also a very good iteration of that list. It's really a classic Cascade Zoo list, but taking some ideas from the Rokiric Rhinos list, using Fire Ice, especially Ice, as a turn 2 play that can cheat Rokiric on turn 3 without your opponent having too much of board advantage at the moment, because you're often stealing turn 2 from your opponent by icing their land in upkeep, which makes turn 3 Rokiric much stronger play than it would usually be. It's usually very slow if you're not playing turn 2 Kavu.
Yes.
If you're not playing turn 2 Kavu or icing your opponent land, it can feel very slow. And often it will be, and you won't be able to jam it on turn 3, which is definitely the turn you want to play it on. Because then on turn 4, if you play your Shardless Agent or Bloodbloody Death, you'll mostly end up with like 20 power on the field, which will threaten to end the game on turn 5. So you really want to jam it on turn 3, as it really makes a game for your opponents on turn 4 impossible if they can't deal with it, and most opponents really can't, unless they're playing a Premises, yeah.
This one fatal flaw, his only weakness.
One fatal flaw, yeah. There is a card that protects General from Renesix, and it makes him pretty much unkillable in the current modern meta game. It's a card I still haven't tested, but I don't even know the name. But it's a red-white enchantment that gives all red creatures +1 and all white creatures +1 on toughness, and it can be sacrificed for 2 mana to blink all creatures you control and bring it back on your combat step with haste.
Oh gosh, don't play that. That's a Legion's Initiative. I think that's a card.
Legion's Initiative, yeah. It's only playable in that deck. It's only playable in a general Rokiric deck, but I saw it played in the list, in a classic Cascade Zoo list, which played a lot of burn spells. I don't think it's good for those, but I think like Zoo Scam list we were talking about before could really like use that card well, and it could be another scam spell other than Melira, because other than Melira and Safi, you could maybe use that Legion Initiative card to scam in Solitude. Also use it to get tokens with your general, to blink a general, protected from Brennan 6, stuff like that. It can be useful, but I still haven't tried it, so I won't talk about it anymore.
It takes 2 mana to activate the ability, though, so it's not
free.
quite as...
It's not free. Yeah, it's not free as with Melira and Sophie, but it is another spell that can be cascaded into, and works well with General because it provides you a Golem token, and it can be used to scam elementals in, so it is another option. Also, there is a new Magic 8's video. He used that card that ends the turn to stop.
Wow. Really? Yeah. The Chance for Glory?
That card that stopped the turn to stop the evoke ability from your elemental, so that's maybe there are a lot of more options to explore, of course, in that list, and I will definitely try them all, so make sure you follow the channel if you want to see them, and subscribe.
Yeah, you can find all of these lists and many, many others on the Dack_Fayden, Dack Fayden 07 YouTube channel. We have about 10 minutes left, and I want to look to the future, specifically to the next set and the new cards, March of the Machine. So, Josip, have you looked at the set yet? What's caught your eye? What do you think will be making an impact? And a second question, what excites you the most personally as a brewer?
Okay, so as you noticed, Zoo is one of my favorite archetypes. I definitely play a lot more than just the Zoo decks. I play all kind of strategies, as I already said, but 5-color decks and graveyard-based strategies like Crabvine, Vengevine decks, and Zoo decks are really kind of my favorite, but I also play everything else too. When looking at the new set, there is just a lot of cards that are playable. there's not a great amount of really powerful format-breaking cards, nothing like that. But there's a huge number of playable cards that can have impact on maybe one or two current modern strategies. I will name the few of most obvious. For the start, let's start with one mana instant spell named white spell called Surge of Salvation. That is, the new spell that can be really used in Hammer Time. In theory, it seems better than the Blacksmith skill. Of course, Blacksmith skill provides indestructible, but hexproof, giving you and all your permanents hexproof is very close to also having indestructible. And I think it will work better. And because it's a main deck hate for red-black based removal and discard and fury, just completely very good against everything that Red Black Scam does, and the Red Black Scam is currently tier 1 deck and very hard matchup for Hammer Time also. So Hammer Time could gain a really good card that can main deck for the future. Okay, other than that, other cards I see that can be very high potential is Kroxa and Kunoros.
Okay, so you're trying to do a little combo here.
Yeah, obviously everybody already know about Altar of Dementia combo with Kroxa. It is a two-card combo. Two-card combos can be really powerful in any format. It is Kroxa cost, of course, 6 mana, but it can fit very well in Reanimator Goryo's strategies, and it is a legendary creature. It can be cheated in earlier with Goryos, giving it haste because it triggers. If you have Alter Dementia, it doesn't matter, but because you can sacrifice it to Alter, and it gets 6 cards into graveyard because 6 is its power. Then you can target itself by its ability and bring it back and just mill yourself out completely and choose Tassa Oracle as your last target and bring back Tassa Oracle and immediately win the game. So it is really a two-card combo because you will certainly mill Tassa and you don't need it. You don't need to have it in your hand to win. So it's a two-card combo, but it's a three-card combo if you count Gorios as a way to do that combo earlier. Of course, you can always hardcast Kroxa for 6 mana, but you will probably more often just use Gorios to bring it back. So I mentioned that because it's a two-card combo that can fit existing strategy in Modern, which is already very powerful. And Atraxa is already a main target for their deck, and the Grizzleband is good, but not as good. So having the Kroxa in there with infinite combo, I don't know, maybe it can be better, maybe it will not. We'll just have to wait and see for the Brewers, maybe me, maybe someone else, probably a sparring Spike, because he's into that Reanimator decks. He will maybe do Brew with it, which will may or may not prove to be worthy to stay in Modern, but it's an interesting card to watch out for. Okay, so other than that, as I said, I was the innovator of Seismic Assault decks in Modern at my start when I just started with MTGO, and I'm really excited for this new card that mimics Seismic Assault.
Okay, so we're talking about the Invasion of Kaldheim, and you're the second person I've talked to. We had Lawson Zandy on the show a couple weeks ago, and he also singled out this card, and I don't quite get it. Like, I read it, and I think it's a trap. It feels like a trap to me, but you're saying this is going to be a new Seismic Assault.
I have personal preference for that card. I can say it's the best battle card in this set because I'm like biased to this archetype. I really enjoy playing this Seismic Assault strategy, and I really like the idea of a card being good in that strategy. But why I think it is good, what was the problem for me when I played the Seismic Assault deck before? You never wanted multiple copies of Seismic Assault, and you were always looking for ways to get rid of the second Seismic, getting rid of third Seismic. So I tried playing Fury, stuff like that, to pitch cast the extra copies, and you just wasn't really able to get rid of the extra copies in a good way. And this card just doesn't have that problem because you can always play it. It has a very good ability as a 4-mana battle, and you just don't mind drawing multiple copies of this. And I think it can work very well with the Brennan 6 and Life from the Loam, because you will always have a full hand of cards, but this hand will mostly be lands. So you will always have like 4 cards in your hand. It will mostly be just lands. So when you draw this invasion card, you will discard 4 lands and get 4 cards in your hand that are not land, maybe non-land cards, and do something, and you still get to play the land card you discarded with invasion, or maybe something else if you had like a bolt, something like this. So you still get to play those cards you discarded. I think in this type of deck it will be easy to kill this battle.
I think it's 4 defense, right? 4 mana to cast, 4 defense. Yeah.
I think it's 4, and I have I have multiple versions of the Loam decks from when I started first the strategy, and one of those versions are, of course, the Zoo Loam. There is always a Zoo version of every deck I play, but it's not really just like a meme. Multiple streamers trophied with this deck on the stream. PT Bench trophied twice. Also, Jan Dingo, I think, trophied once on the stream. And deck performed pretty good at the time. It's very good against Hammer Time. But it's a mediocre against... it was mediocre against this Omnath decks, which was a reason why I didn't play it for at least 3 months. Or 2-3 months. And it was not that great against the Giant Saga and 4-color Omnath piles. So that's the reason why I stopped playing it, and it wasn't as good as it was like 3-4 months ago. But with this new card, you are getting really high potential card that gets you a much better mid-range plane and much better late game. So you're getting a card that can potentially empty the 5 land hand from your discard 5 lands from your card, as you will most often have a big number of lands there, and you can discard them, use your loam again to bring them back into your hand, so you didn't lose those lands forever. They are in your graveyard waiting to loan them back in, and you get 5 fresh cards using this invasion of Kalheim into your hand, and you will probably play Fury in that deck, and you will probably be able to use those cards immediately, like having a 1 mana removal, having a Fury to pitch cast, stuff like that. And then when you flip it into the Seismic Assault, when you kill the battle and flip it on the other side, it's really powerful. It's just upgraded Seismic Assault, and it will mostly end the game on the spot, because every land you discard gets you the card from the top of your library, which is just insane value for that kind of deck. And I don't think it's beatable, because you will mostly have answers with Bossages for any pitting needles and stuff that may stop the deck or something like that. So
yeah, so that answers one of the main questions I had. Most of the scenarios people described were, okay, you have Renin 6, so your hand is full of lands. And I said, well, what if you don't have Renin 6, right? Then the card seems terrible. But you're saying, okay, actually, we're gonna be a dedicated Seismic Assault style deck. We're gonna play Life from the Loam and Renin 6, so we're really gonna make sure we have lands. Okay.
You're probably playing 3 Life from the Loams in that deck, and you're playing 4 Renin 6. So there is really playing also a high number of lands. Certainly 24, 25 lands, or even higher than that. I think 3 Life from the Loams and 4 Renin 6 will ensure, plus the high land count will ensure you always have them. You always have lands in your hand to use when the assault is active.
Okay, well, I'm excited to see what you do with Invasion of Kalheim. Yeah. Any other cards that are high on your list?
Yeah, there are other cards, like I really like that 5 mana God. Jeru and Hazaret. I
Oh,
think
okay.
potential of hard casting the Emrakul is very tempting to play. I think also very similar to my Winota Reanimator.
Mm-hmm.
You can use that Jeru and Hazaret god to have two winning strategies. Like one strategy can be Reanimator strategy using Emrakul, of course, with Goryo's Vengeance. And the other strategy can be also using Jeru with Goryo's Vengeance, finding that Emrakul and actually hard casting it. It allows casting of the card, I think.
It does, yeah.
It also can you can also have that Mardu big red beat down plan using Jeru Hazaret as a vigilance haster, which is has huge power toughness. You'll also probably play Seasoned Pyromancer in that deck, Fables, Ragavans, stuff like that. So you will have that aggro plan plus very strong Reanimator plan, and I think combining this can end up to something really similar to the Winota Reanimator list we talked about. And but we'll just have to see if this proves to be playable or just theory.
Yeah, your Winota Reanimator list was the first deck I thought of when we saw Jeru and Hazaret. And what's really cute is that Jeru is a human. Like, it's a human god, so Winota actually finds Jeru on the attack trigger, and then Jeru finds Winota on the attack trigger. So I'm not even sure you need Emrakul. Like, Emrakul is good, obviously, but it doesn't really fit with the Winota half, and it actually is kind of screws up your graveyard. So it's a really interesting, fascinating card to add to that shell.
Yeah. I'm excited about that card, definitely. Also, some other cards I would like to mention. A Seed Shark creates incubators.
Oh, yes.
We'll know how strong can Resolved Shark Typhoon be. It's a 2/4 creature, so it means it doesn't die to Lightning Bolt, which is very relevant. If you can resolve it, it also makes artifact tokens, which can be relevant for the artifact strategies. There was also some artifact builds with Iconoclast, so this can maybe fit in the same deck. Also making artifact tokens, using cards like Totcast for 1 mana, drawing 2 cards, creating a potential 5/5 creature for just 1 mana, which can you need to use mana, unfortunately, I mean, luckily, to flip it because it would be too strong. But you can theoretically in artifact deck cast a Totcast for 1 mana, draw 2 cards, and get a potential 5/5 creature for just which you can flip for 2 mana where you want. I think it has a potential. It's not like Monastery Mentor or Iconoclast that just makes 1/1 tokens. You can choose which of those creatures you will use mana for to flip. You maybe don't use it on a 1/1 creature, but when it's a 5/5, then 2 mana is well spent to do this. Also, Hello Forager. It's a card, the fairy card, black-blue card. It's a card I'm excited for using in zoo lists, especially, for example, in the Rokiric Rhinos list. It's a blue card that is very important for the Force of Negations in my sideboard. It also is a decent cascade target for the Bloodbraid Elf. When you have rhinos in your graveyard, you will just, for 0 mana, you can replay the rhinos. I think it will just work well in that build, and I'm excited to try it. Other than that, I think it can be maybe sideboard card for some strategies, trying to fight living end decks and just completely reversing the thing they did with living end.
That's right, because it's allowed to cast from the opponent's graveyard. So if they've got a living end in the graveyard.
Yeah, you can cast it. It's good because you can cast it from your opponent's graveyard too. So you can use their lightning bolts, their unholy heats, fatal pushes against them. You can use to replay your opponent's crushing footfalls. You can also replay your own crushing footfalls. I think it will be a great fit for the Rokiric Rhinos list, but I'll just have to think more about how to fit it exactly. Other than that, I would like to mention Convoke spells. There are a lot of Convoke spells. All of them still haven't been spoiled. but the black removal spell with the Surveil 2, I think it's among the best Convoke spells spoiled so far.
Yeah, pile on. That one's the 3 and a black.
Pylon, yeah, Pylon, yeah. That is, yeah. Also, a lot of other Convoke spells I like. There is some obvious that are good, but I kind of like that Draw 2.
Oh, really? Meeting of the Minds. Okay.
Yeah, I like that Draw 2 card that can be maybe used in some combo-ish creature-based decks.
Okay.
I'm a creature-based deck lover, and I really like to cast my creatures and cheat them in various ways. And I think that can be like a decent card to play maybe in some deck that maybe still doesn't exist, or maybe in some existing deck like something similar to Elves, but not the existing versions, but something that must be brewed with. It's a card that I'll be brewed with, but it's maybe not the most obvious card that can be potentially used in Modern. Other than that, there are those multicolor cards that has names with multiple well-known legendary creatures like Talia, Gitrog, Zimone, Dina, Errant, and Giada. So that cards, I think they will not see much play, but are very interesting build-around cards that will definitely be used by brewers in this post-release state, and I think definitely people will try to do something. I'm most excited for trying something with Zimone and Dina
Okay.
because I think it has 4 toughness, which can be very relevant,
Yes.
and I'm thinking of the ways I can use their passive immediately, and maybe some free-to-play throw spells like this Meeting of Minds can be used to draw 2 for 0 mana and also trigger the Zimone immediately. Stuff like that. I think I'll try something with it and have to see if it work out or not. There is also that White Knight, 5 mana. I'm not really high on it, but it can only be good maybe in the Death and Taxes. The Death and Taxes, because Death and Taxes is a deck that often has white untapped creatures standing there like Stoneforge Mystic, like creatures not attacking. But when you have 2-3 creatures to tap, you're already in a winning position, and I don't like those type of cards that are good when you're in a good position and bad when you don't have anything. So it often feels like a win more type of cards. But Death and Taxes is a strategy that will often have a few untapped creatures staying there, and it doesn't have to be a win more card, so it can provide. It can be a good value engine, and I think it could maybe work there. But as I said, I'm not really too high on it, but I would like to mention it. And there is one final card I would like to mention from the this edition. It is the Rona, Herald of Invasion.
Oh, yes. Love this card.
Yeah, this is the card I can see being pretty good in the Catfish combo. I watched the Croquis. He's a historic standard streamer, popular on Twitch. I watched him play the Catfish combo in Pioneer, and I got to say it feels pretty powerful. He was using the new Jace as a win condition, and I think this will be a great fit in those type of Catfish decks in Pioneer. But I also think it's the same can be done in Modern, but we'll just have to see just how strong that strategy will feel.
Yeah, I think we would have to play it in Modern because it is banned in Pioneer. Croquis must have been playing Historic, where I think you can still do it in Historic, but in Pioneer they banned the Kithis. But Modern,
Okay,
in Modern Kithis we haven't actually.
He was playing Historic then, yeah, right.
But Modern Kithis is very interesting. I would love to see what you can do with that.
Yeah, it is definitely. So when you start doing the Kithis thing and start replaying Mox Opals, and the number of times you can do the Rona ability can really be very powerful. Just replaying that Mox Amber from the graveyard multiple times, getting the loot ability, filling the graveyard in the process to again fuel the Kithis. I think this card has a potential to make that deck much better, but it is a question: will that much better be? How competitive will that still be? But I have a good feeling that it could bring maybe that strategy to the to bigger competitive level.
That's very interesting because we talked about in our set review episodes about, combining Rona with Mox Amber and Retraction Helix, which you can do in Pioneer, but we hadn't really thought about Kethis, and it seems perfect for that strategy. It seems perfect for that combo. So that'll be very exciting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is amazing list. I'm glad you put the Chrome Host Seed Shark on there. That's my personal #1 card from the set. I'm excited to make some huge incubation tokens, but I'm also just really excited to see what you and what other brewers out there are able to do with all these fun new toys.
Obviously, there are other cards that have potential, like that Phoenix.
Yes.
I think that there's that card that will be played in Hardened Scales as a one-off.
Oh, the new Ozolith Shattered Spire.
Yeah, the new Ozolith will probably be played as a one-off.
Bloodfeather Phoenix was the Phoenix you're talking about.
Yeah. There is a Phoenix card, but there is already a Flame Wake Phoenix, which is legal in Modern. Nobody plays it. It requires a creature with power 4 on the field, which is slightly worse than just dealing damage with your. It's easier to deal damage with your instant spell like Bolt, Lava Dart. So it's more playable, but it's still just a 2/2. It's still just a 2/2. So there is much more powerful stuff happening in Modern than paying 1 mana to bring back your 2/2 from the graveyard. So I'm not too high on it as some other people, but I think it's a playable. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think by the time this episode is coming out, we will be able to actually test out these ideas. So March of the Machine will be fresh on everyone's mind. I can't wait to see what you come up with, Josip. Excited to check out your videos and just chat with you more on Discord. So you mentioned at the top, you are on Twitter now. You're on YouTube, so definitely go subscribe. Dack Fayden 07. That's Dack_Fayden. You're on various Discords as well, as people can find you online. I know you're in Zoo Discord, you're in Crabvine Discord. Where else are you?
Well, I'm also in Rhinos Discord and Enigmatic Incarnation Discord, but that Discord is really not popular. Yeah, that is maybe it is very popular in Pioneer, but not in Modern. I don't know what is the reason, but Enigmatic Incarnation deck in Modern just don't get almost any interest. Maybe a very low interest. But it is very popular deck in Pioneer and very viable, strong option there. But people tend to just kind of think low on it in Modern format.
Yeah, you'll have to bring it back. You can check out, Josip has a Enigmatic Elementals deck on his channel, so there's tons of stuff to explore. You can always pick his brain about it.
I think I definitely brought it back when Yorion was legal. I played the deck. I had 5 consecutive MTGO leagues in a row. I had 6 trophies in 5 days.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Stuff like that, and it was just constantly on my channel, and it was constantly showing up in the MTGO league results, but just nobody had any interest to pick that up. So I kind of just gave up on it, and that was it. So
you gotta show them the path, but there's nothing we can do about it if they don't want to try it.
If you don't want to try it, you don't want to try it. That's it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today, but there's much more content on Dack's YouTube channel. We will include links to all of your socials in the episode description in the show notes of this episode. Josip, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to talk to you and just pick your brain and hear about all these great, awesome 5.0 lists.
So I try to point out some think that can be relevant for those ideas, and I think we get most of them through. Of course, there is more stuff on the channel we didn't talk about, but you can see it for yourself, as Dan said. Check it on the YouTube to see what you like.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
It's great to have you, and I'm sure we'll see you around.
Yeah. It was great to talk to you, and hope to talk to you again at other opportunity.
All right, take care.
Okay, you too.
Deck lists for this episode can be found at our homepage, faithlessbrewing.com. And don't forget to follow Josip at Dack_Fayden07 on YouTube for more modern spice. Support for this podcast is provided by brewers like you. If you enjoyed this episode, visit patreon.com/faithlessbrewing for Discord access, bonus content, and more. That's all for today. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.